A 60-foot steel hull doesn't just snap like a dry twig in dead calm waters. But at exactly 4:12 a.m. off the remote Alaskan coast, the research vessel Northern Star was sheared cleanly in half. There was no rogue wave, no tectonic shift. The captain simply anchored near what looked like a solid, immobile sanctuary of white ice. But then, the sanctuary groaned with the sound of grinding gears. The ice didn't crack, it folded. What if the frozen ground beneath your feet wasn't a landscape, but a trap? Welcome to the archives. Today we're unearthing a terrifying biological anomaly that makes the freezing cold the absolute least of your worries. The Arctic has long been a place of silence and whiteout conditions, where the line between the sky and the sea blurs into a singular, freezing void. For centuries, sailors have spoken of the Frozen Sentinels, a maritime legend relegated to the same category as krakens and ghost ships. They were described as living bergs, islands of frost that could move against the current and vanish into the depths without leaving a ripple. For the modern world, these were dismissed as optical illusions caused by the Fata Morgana, or simple fatigue-induced hallucinations. However, recent anomalies in the receding shelf ice of northern Norway and the Aleutian Islands suggest that these legends were not born of imagination, but of a biological reality lurking just beneath the surface. What is being whispered about in the dark corners of coastal taverns is no longer just a myth. It is a highly specialized biological anomaly, known to some as the deep frost crab. These are not the small, skittering crustaceans found in tide pools. These are evolutionary outliers of a scale that defies standard marine biology. They have mastered a form of cryo-mimicry so perfect that they are indistinguishable from the environment they inhabit. By secreting a specialized protein-rich fluid from their carapaces, they are able to flash freeze the surrounding seawater, encasing themselves in a thick, jagged layer of genuine ice. To a radar or a human eye, they are nothing more than another piece of the frozen north. The danger lies in the stillness. A deep frost crab can remain in a state of suspended animation for months, drifting with the tides, appearing as nothing more than a flat, harmless ice floe. It is a passive predator that waits for the vibration of a passing engine or the weight of a footfall. When a ship attempts to moor or a researcher steps out to take a core sample, the vibration triggers a chemical reaction within the creature's joints. The ice doesn't melt. It shatters with explosive force. From beneath the white crust emerge limbs of calcified chitin, reinforced with mineral deposits from the deep sea, creating edges as sharp as industrial shears. There is a specific kind of dread associated with the realization that the ground beneath you is alive. In the late autumn of last year, a group of environmental surveyors vanished near the Svalbard archipelago. Their last radio transmission didn't mention a storm or a polar bear. It was a frantic, confused report about the ice shelf growing teeth. When the rescue team arrived, they found no trace of the camp. There were only jagged, triangular holes in the remaining ice, as if something had punched through from below and pulled the entire site into the freezing dark. No debris was recovered. The ocean had simply closed its mouth. The mechanics of these creatures suggest an intelligence that is both ancient and alien. They do not hunt with speed, they hunt with patience. By mimicking the very thing that sailors use for safety, the stable ice, they have turned the environment itself into a trap. Their carapaces are estimated to be several feet thick, composed of a dense matrix of calcium and carbon that can withstand the crushing pressures of the midnight zone. Scientific circles have struggled to classify these entities. Are they a byproduct of a changing climate, forced from the deep trenches into the shallows as the oceans warm? Or have they always been here, hidden by the vastness of the ice that is now disappearing? Some researchers suggest that the deep frost crabs are the reason many ancient northern cultures refused to venture onto the floating white lands during certain lunar cycles. They knew that the ice was not a stationary object, but a guardian, a sentinel that does not tolerate trespassers. The visual evidence remains frustratingly elusive, much like the creatures themselves. Satellite imagery occasionally catches anomalous shadows in the middle of ice fields, shapes that appear to have symmetry and structure, only to disappear in the next pass. Underwater drones sent to investigate these coordinates often suffer from mysterious mechanical interference or are returned to the surface with deep, clean gouges in their titanium casings. It is as if the North is actively protecting its new inhabitants, or perhaps its oldest ones. Fishermen in Alaska have begun to report a new phenomenon: the clinking of the sea. On dead calm nights, when the wind stops and the water is like glass, they hear a rhythmic, metallic tapping coming from the ice fields. It isn't the sound of cracking frost. It is the sound of thousands of serrated legs striking the underside of the ice, a subterranean orchestra of hunger. They call it the dinner bell. When the tapping starts, the experienced captains don't wait for the fog to clear. They cut their lines and burn as much fuel as they can to reach the open, deep water, far away from the deceptive safety of the white shelves. Consider the structural integrity of a modern vessel. It is designed to withstand the pressure of waves and the impact of floating debris, but it is not designed to be gripped. The deep frost crab utilizes a hydraulic pressure system within its claws that can exert thousands of pounds of force per square inch. When it latches onto a hull, it doesn't just dent the metal, it compromises the molecular structure. The cold emitted from its shell causes the steel to become brittle, and then the mechanical force of the claw does the rest. It is a silent, efficient neutralization of anything that disturbs its frozen peace. The most unsettling aspect of the deep frost crab is the transition from the inanimate to the animate. One moment, you are looking at a serene, crystalline landscape, a vista of pure white beauty that has inspired poets for generations. The next, that landscape is unfolding. The ridges of the ice become the joints of a massive limb. The blue shadows in the crevasses reveal themselves to be sensory organs attuned to the slightest movement. The sudden shift in perspective is enough to paralyze the mind. By the time the brain registers that the ice is moving, it is often too late to react. The mystery of their origin remains a point of intense, though quiet, debate. Some deep-sea explorers suggest that these creatures are part of a larger, interconnected ecosystem that exists in the thermal vents of the Arctic floor. They may rise to the surface only when the atmospheric pressure reaches a certain threshold. Or perhaps they are following the migration patterns of deep-sea currents that are only now being mapped. Regardless of the reason, their presence changes the rules of the North. The Arctic is no longer just a hostile environment because of the temperature. It is a hostile environment because it is inhabited by something that views us as an intrusion. There are those who claim to have seen the Sentinels in the rare moments when they are not camouflaged. They describe a creature that looks less like a crab and more like a tectonic plate with legs. Its color is not the red or orange of its smaller cousins, but a translucent, ghostly white, with veins of deep cobalt running through its limbs. Its eyes do not reflect light, they absorb it, appearing as twin voids in the center of a frosted mass. They move with a deliberate grace, driven by an ancient, freezing patience. The stories of survivors, those few who were far enough away to witness an encounter without being claimed by it, all share a common thread. They speak of the sound. It isn't a roar or a cry. It is a high-pitched, harmonic vibration that resonates in the bones. It is the sound of ice crystals rubbing together at high speed. Some believe this is a form of echolocation, while others think it is a way for the creatures to communicate across the vast frozen plains. It is a sound that haunts the sleep of every sailor who has heard it, a reminder that the silence of the North is never truly empty. As the polar ice continues to shift and thin, the encounters are becoming more frequent. What was once a rare legend of the high seas is becoming a documented hazard for the shipping industry and scientific expeditions alike.
But how do you combat an enemy that looks exactly like the ground you're standing on?
Traditional sonar is often fooled by the creature's dense ice-like shell, and by the time thermal imaging picks up the faint heat of its internal organs, the distance is already closed. The Sentinels have the ultimate tactical advantage. They are the terrain. This is not a call for panic, but a plea for a new kind of respect for the unknown. We have mapped the surface of the moon and sent probes to the edge of the solar system. Yet the depths of our own oceans remain a frontier of shadows. The deep frost crab is a reminder that evolution does not always follow the path we expect. In the coldest, most unforgiving corners of the globe, life has found a way to become the very thing that should destroy it. It has become the frost, the ice, and the silent death that waits beneath. The next time you look at a photograph of the Arctic, with its majestic icebergs and peaceful white expanses, look a little closer at the edges. Notice the shapes that seem a little too sharp, the flows that seem to be moving against the wind, and the stillness that feels a bit too heavy. The North is not just a place of ice and snow. It is a place of watchers. It is a place where the Frozen Sentinels stand their ground, waiting for the next vibration, the next footstep, the next soul to mistake their armor for an island. If you find yourself on a boat in the far northern latitudes, and the water suddenly turns unnaturally still, and the ice around you begins to hum with a low, metallic vibration, do not stop to take a photograph. Do not wonder at the beauty of the shifting white landscape. Turn the engines to full, look to the horizon, and pray that you are not standing on the back of a sentinel. Because beneath the ice, something is always awake, and it has been waiting for a long, long time. The loss of the Northern Star was officially filed away as a tragic weather anomaly. But the recovered audio, the fused glass trails, and the missing wreckage tell a much darker story. As global temperatures shift and the polar shelves fracture, these sentinels are adapting. Our definition of a safe harbor is rapidly dissolving into the freezing fog. So, I leave you with this. If you were stranded on a dead, calm Arctic night and suddenly heard that rhythmic, metallic clinking striking the ice beneath your boots, would you stay to document this ultimate biological secret? Or would you burn your engines and run for open water? Drop your survival plan in the comments below. Let me know if you think the deep frost crab is nature's ultimate guardian or just a nightmare waiting to wake up. Stay paranoid, keep your eyes on the ice, and subscribe for more classified files. I'll see you in the dark.